There's a logical reason to say fear is a useful survival mechanism. It gives you preparedness to be able to handle existential threats. You've seen it before. You might have a playbook, but whether actually in real time it helps you do that, I'm not totally sure, or kind of gets in the way. I think what I see both of you share in common is a characterization of a lot of Jewish life in the 20th century as kind of what I'll call a warm bath of liberalism, for better or worse. Right? The warm bath of liberalism creates the kind of conditions of assimilation that you see as having weakened our resolve to maintain our own particularism, to actually mine the stuff out of Jewish tradition that Jews perceived that they didn't really need. Like, why do I need particularly Jewish mourning rituals if what I'm borrowing from my neighbors is perfectly fine? But you've also described as like the warm bath of liberalism made Jews basically feel safe. And I share in common with you that, like, when I was in graduate school, people said weird things to me all the time around Harvard. People would say things all of the time about wearing a kippah. I had a professor in the classroom who parenthetically had served in the Wehrmacht. That should have been a red flag. Who said really anti-Semitic things to me, but it didn't feel threatening to me. I just thought it was weird. And I argued with him about my grade, which he gave me a bad grade on because he said I was reading Paul wrong. Whatever, that's a whole other podcast. But it didn't scare me. And now something flips in terms of that sense of being scared. And I guess I want to take both angles of that warm bath of liberalism. Frank, I'll start with you and then I'll come back to you, Sarah. What do you think were the central features of what made it possible for you to feel that we were basically fine? And not just what did it feel like, but what were the characteristics of this society that Jews built in America or enabled America to build that enabled us to feel that sense of security?
So American Jews are incredible dreamcasters and Imagineers. It's really one of the geniuses of our community. We happen to be good at creating communal organizations and philanthropy and all these other things. But really, one of our gifts was to imagine what American Jewish life would be like by casting these glossy images about what American life could look like. And it goes back to Emma Lazarus. It goes back to people like there was a Harvard philosopher named Horace Kallen, an idea about America as being a tolerant society, where to participate, you didn't need to engage in this European bargain where you needed to renounce your particularism, your Jewish identity in order to become a citizen. In the United States, citizenship was about authentically showing up. And it was the hyphen in the middle of Jewish American was not something to eschew. It was something to embrace. And so that is one vision. And then the second vision is this vision of, the corollary to that is this idea that America is a place where there is no blood and soil nationalism, which is kind of a fiction, but it's a wonderful aspiration about what America could look like. So it's a celebration of immigration. It was this idea that in order for Jews to thrive, we needed there to be broad protections for all religious and ethnic and political minorities. It meant that we could participate in the culture as truly ourselves. We didn't need to change our names anymore. You didn't need to be George Burns or Edward Robinson in order to participate in American life. You could participate as Jerry Seinfeld. You could participate as Adam Sandler singing the Hanukkah song. And that kind of cultural ubiquity, that acceptance from the mainstream, the way in which it was possible to see yourself reflected in the mainstream. It was bizarre in retrospect because we're only 2 or 3% of the population at best. But if you turned on the television set and you watched the nightly news or you watched prime time, it felt like we were looming over the culture. It was an incredible privilege for an ethnic minority to have that kind of salience and to feel seen and accepted and embraced in that sort of way.
Yeah, so, and I actually, my favorite example in that, maybe the turning point in the whole story, is Lenny Bruce doing comedy routines in comedy clubs describing Jewish and Goyish. and naming that there's something different between the Jewish and the Goyish in a way that says, yeah, Jews are a little weird, but not dangerously weird. Not like weird in a way it should be scary. It's just that they eat their rye bread and we're white bread. Like that distinction, and that marks that like you're not trying to hide your Jewishness in order to participate in something. You're going to participate fully as a Jew and be part of the kind of cultural thriving.
But are you?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, but are you? I just, it's like this idea that Adam Sandler, that this is like the full Jew. Like this is like, I don't know. I hear what you're saying, and I'm not in any way saying that wasn't wonderful. It was wonderful. I mean, the vacation from history that we had in America was wonderful. But I'm just questioning a little bit, like these very public Jews, like were they really public as Jews or as sort of like, haha, I'm a cultural Jew. Haha, my mother's anxious. Haha, I like bagels. Haha, I'm rye bread, not white bread. But we're both bread. I just go to a different church. Like what was the kind of as a Jew that was presenting? And that's a fine way to be a Jew. I'm not criticizing that, but I just wonder, like, Joe Lieberman was so notable. It was like, oh my God, Joe Lieberman, like, whoa, this guy, he's an Orthodox Jew. That was the exception. That was not the rule. So I just want to, this is Meir Soloveichik's, I think this is sort of his argument, which is almost a counter argument to your piece, which was, yeah, it was a golden age for a certain type of Jew, for a certain type of kind of assimilated cultural Jew that was acceptable, right? That was kind of like, oh, I'm just like you, but with a fun ethnic church. Like, you don't go to your church, haha, I don't go to my Jew church either. We're both kind of modern and we're, spiritual but not religious. And so I don't know, I just want to push a little bit on like that, what was the nature of that acceptance?
I think that it sells American Jewry a little bit short not to note all of the incredible theology and theological innovation that emerged on American soil. So your critique of Jerry Seinfeld is probably fair, right? Like that's pretty empty reason to celebrate American Jewish life. But in a constellation of kind of the whole edifice, you have Meir Soloveichik's father wrote an incredible book and founded an incredible strain of Judaism that was about the tension of living in American life and navigating American life. Even all of the Jeremiads decrying assimilation represent an incredible canon of Jewish thought, going back to the stuff that Abraham Joshua Heschel started writing as soon as he got to these shores. Chabad is kind of an incredible, the American offshoot of Chabad is an incredible theological innovation. Conservative Judaism is an incredible offshoot. Reconstructionist strange of Judaism is an incredible offshoot. America is a place where religions tend to innovate because there is this blank canvas to work with, and that's been true for Jews as well. And so we're experiencing things in the same sort of way that Jews all over the world experiencing things in this interaction with modernity. There is assimilation. That tug is there, and we do lose some of the richness in the course of it. But then there are all these other things that spring up in that same space.
Yeah, I guess I feel, Sarah, that represents my growing up story, where I felt, as the child of an American public servant, perfectly assimilated into the possibilities of what it meant to become an American, ultimately representing America overseas as a Jew, but also with a richness of modern Orthodox upbringing and Jewish education that felt like it was only possible because of America. But that experience left you hollow.
No, and here, first of all, the ability of Jews to thrive in America is unparalleled. And there's no question that the conservative movement, which is now 18% of American Jews, has thrived. The Reconstructionist movement, which is now, I think, 1.4% of American Jews, has thrived. I mean, there are these pockets, and I'm in no way denying that, and that is the beauty of that vacation from history we had, that you guys were free, you were free to grow up with this deep, rich Jewish identity that didn't impede your Americanness. That was the beauty of that vacation. But the legacy of the history that led to that vacation, that led us to be safe enough in this country to be kind of accepted, is that I grew up, and the majority of American Jews grew up with something that wasn't that rich Jewish identity, and that is a cost. And I think, I sometimes see in the organized Jewish world, this idea that kind of every Jew knows what the Talmud is. Like it's hard for a lot of people who didn't grow up like I did to realize just how little most American Jews know about the tradition. I think it's just hard to even imagine, and they don't believe me. And so there are certainly wonderful, I think, minority pockets of Jews doing deep, rich Jewishness, and then there's like a vast number of Jews out there who don't have access, who don't even know that exists. Like, I'd never heard of the Federation 10 years ago, never heard of it. I didn't know, I wasn't connected. And, looking at the Pew survey data, I wasn't alone. There's a lot of Jews like me.